So at Aquila Initiative, we talk about competency-based theological education, and that's not a term that people use a lot. And when I think about this idea of competency-based education, I think about what Paul wrote to Timothy in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15. He says, "Do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who has no need to be ashamed, rightly handling the word of truth." And so this word approved is really what comes to my mind, that we are called, Paul is calling Timothy to be a worker who is approved, one who has shown himself to be capable, to be competent. And really it's in two areas. It's the character. He's not someone that's supposed to be ashamed, that what he's teaching is, as Paul also writes to Timothy, watch your life and your teaching. They have to line up. But it's also the rightly handling the word of truth. So someone with godly character and the competency to handle the word of truth, preaching and teaching. This is the goal of what we want all pastors and leaders to be trained up to be able to do. It's having the godly character, pursuing godliness, and at the same time rightly handling Scripture as they teach others. And it reminds me of this picture that I have in my office, and it's a picture that was taken on the night that I was ordained at Laramie Valley Chapel. It was 2013, and on the stage, I'm there at the pulpit, and around me are all the elders from the church, as well as my grandfather, who's now with the Lord, who's been a pastor for over 40 years, and my father, who is still, after 30 plus years, still pastoring there in Laramie, and other pastors that were in my life and who had influence on me, and even Dr. Alan Carr, who was from the seminary where I studied, came up that night to lay hands on me. And what was special about that is that it wasn't the seminary that approved me for the work of the ministry, and it wasn't a mission organization. It was the local church. And really that's what I think Paul's getting at. Because in 2 Timothy, he says, show yourself to God as one who is approved, already been approved. Well, who approves? It's clear to me that, ultimately God is the one who equips and approves people for work. That responsibility is given to the local church. And I always think about that picture because really that picture is kind of a watershed moment in my life, and you can look at two sides of kind of a timeline. And on the left side of that timeline, of that picture, is my life leading up to that night of having the elders laying hands on me and ordaining me, and then not that long after sending me to Cologne, where I became the lead pastor of International Baptist Church of Cologne. Leading up to that time, there was a lot of time of preparation, of training and teaching, and given opportunities to lead and to be corrected and to make mistakes, but all in the context of the local church. After coming back from the mission field in 2009, Kristen and I served in Germany for a couple years. And I can remember sitting on that airplane just feeling like a failure. I went to Germany in 2007 thinking that we were like the missing puzzle to revival, only to come back in 2009 with the proverbial tail between my legs, just feeling like a failure. And although we tried to share the gospel with a lot of people, and we were involved and I was involved in teaching, I didn't have what was needed. I wasn't really equipped, and I didn't have that confidence. I was immature. But coming back and finishing up seminary while working at the church, I had this tremendous opportunity. While I was getting great theological education from Golden Gate, I was able to live it out and practice it in the context of the local church. And on top of that, it was in the local church where my character was being developed, and it was also others were able to see my growth, able to see that I was developing as a leader. And so being a pastor, being an elder in the church, and given the opportunity to grow and mature as a leader, that night as they laid hands on me, the confirmation was for me personally, knowing that these men who I looked up to, that I sat under, had the confidence to lay their hands on me and say, yes, we've seen that this person David is approved, he's a good worker, and we can send him off in confidence. But also that the local church could see that it's their responsibility to train up leaders. It's their responsibility to approve workers. And also for the church that received me, that invited me to come be their pastor, knowing that it was a local church that approved me and that sent me to them, gave them the confidence to receive me and to follow my leadership. It's not really to say that once I arrived, I had everything figured out. I had lots of things to learn as a new pastor in Cologne. I'm still learning things. But there was a moment in my life where the local church, the leaders of the local church, said, this one is approved for the work. He stands before us, before God, as one who is a good worker, approved and through his character, his desire to live godly, and his teaching. And so every time I look at that picture on the wall, I'm remembered of 2 Timothy chapter 2, that I am constantly being called to show myself, to stand before God as one who is a good worker, approved, unashamed, and able to handle the word of truth. And this is what we want to give through Aquila Initiative. This is what we want to equip local churches with. We don't want all of your leaders to come to us. We don't have brick and mortar, a building that we bring people to train. The local church is the environment where leaders need to be raised up and equipped. We simply want to help bring that curriculum to the local church so that they can have everything they need to equip them theologically, to watch their life, that they become men of character, that the fathers and husbands and their wives are with them, and that they are being equipped and challenged and matured in a context of a local church. And so that church, when they lay hands on them and send them out, they're sending out what they believe is their best. They're sending out who they believe really is called by God and approved. And so we hope by God's grace that as we develop and share the curriculum with you, that the churches really begin to see this as a resource for training up their own leaders for long-term sustainable and reproducible ministry. Because ultimately, I say it all the time, it's not the seminaries that approve people, it's not mission agencies, it's Christ Church.